let me try to look at current events from the point of view of partially deterministic, fatalistic forces. Look at Tunisia, where the Arab Spring started. Tunisia is the closest point in the Arab world to Europe. You can take a slow car ferry from Tunis to Trapani in western Sicily, and it'll take only 7 hours. You can fly in 30 minutes. If you read Tunisian history, you find throughout the medieval and early modern age, it had as much to do with Italy and Sicily that it had to do with any other place in North Africa. If you look at a map of Roman settlements from Morocco to Egypt, you'll find age-old clusters of civilization in Morocco, Tunisia, Greater Carthage, that is, and the Nile River Valley. Algeria and Libya were basically vague geographical expressions that weren't invented as modern states until relatively recently. The road system of Tunisia was laid by the Romans. If you drive through Tunisia, chances are the road you're on was a road in Roman times because it was so close to Europe. Yet, when Scipio Africanus destroyed Carthage, destroyed Hannibal's forces, he dug a fossa regia, a demarcation ditch, which went from Tabarka in the north, south a few hundred miles, and then straight east to Sfax on the eastern Mediterranean coast. And for 2,000 years, every place within that ditch, between the ditch and the Mediterranean, was highly developed. And every place on the other side of the ditch was left to relatively low-level underdevelopment. All right, voila. You had the Arab Spring start in the part of the Arab world that was closest to Europe, but outside the demarcation ditch. In a town, Sidi Bouzid, which always had high levels of unemployment, high levels of underdevelopment. These things did not cause the Arab Spring, but they were underlying background noises and factors that help explain it better. Libya. Libya was not a place, a country, until the 20th century. Greater Tripolitania, Trablus, Tripoli in the west, was always oriented to Greater Carthage. Benghazi, Cyrenaica in the east, was always oriented towards Alexandria and the Nile Valley. It was always a nest of regionally based tribes. Therefore, when the Arab Spring spread to Libya and Egypt, it was fundamentally different in Tunisia and Egypt than it was in Libya. In Tunisia and Egypt, the issues quickly became political. A form of Islamism versus a variant of Western-style secularism, whatever. And these became pitched battles, which are still being fought. But the basic identity of the state was never an issue. There was bureaucracies. There was a motor vehicles bureau. There was agricultural forces. There were roads. There were institutional administrative development, because these places were age-old clusters of civilization because of proximity to the Mediterranean in Tunisia's case and the Nile Valley in Egypt's case. The Nile flows from south to north, but the winds go from north to south, enabling sailing in the other direction, so that Egypt became united by the Nile. Whereas in Libya, the issue was very different. The issue was governance itself, because this place wasn't really a country in the first place, partly and largely because of geographical reasons. So that the government of Libya can't really govern outside of Greater Tripoli. And the whole south has already been lost. And the ties that unite East and West are very tenuous. Syria, another vague geographical expression, more than it was a state, not as bad as Algeria or Libya, but also I wrote in the Atlantic Monthly in 1992, the February issue, that Syria was not a country, that Hafez al-Assad was the Brezhnev of the Arab world. in the sense that he papered over differences of sectarian and ethnic group, but didn't create a civil society in its place. He didn't use the opportunity he had by creating stability to create a civil society. And therefore, Syria was a nest of regionally based ethnic and sectarian groups.